In the summer of 1814, a mass execution sends an unmistakable message to the population of Upper Canada. 8 men, convicted of treason for aiding the American forces, are hanged at Burlington Heights. Since the beginning of the war, dozens of Upper Canadians have turned traitor. But the most notorious of them all is still at large. Joseph Wilcox has come a long way since serving his prison term for libel. At the outbreak of the war, he was re-elected to the Upper Canada Assembly and became leader of the unofficial opposition. But in the summer of 1813, Wilcox crosses the line from dissent to treason. He begins passing on military information to the American commanders.
I now beg leave to lay before you some facts which most materially affect the plans proposed for the subjugation of this province. The enemy's force now at Burlington is certainly upwards of 1,200 regular troops, in addition to which there are at York 1,000 regulars. But I do not hesitate to say that so soon as the British are driven from amongst us, I shall, with the assistance of my friends, render this province independent of British influence.
Wilcox is still a member of the Assembly of Upper Canada when he becomes a colonel in the American Army. Within 6 weeks, he has raised a force of 130 Canadian volunteers to fight for the enemy. For a year, the Canadian turncoats wage a campaign of terror along the Niagara frontier. They even burn the village of Newark, whose people voted Wilcox into the Assembly. Now, in the summer of 1814, Wilcox and his men commit a final act of treachery. They march with an American invasion force in one last push to capture Upper Canada. Amelia Ryers is just 16 when the invaders overrun her family's farm.
When I looked up, I saw the hillside and the fields as far as the eye could reach, covered with American soldiers. My mother knew instinctively what they were going to do. She entreated the commanding officer to spare her property and said that she was a widow with a young family. He answered her civilly and respectfully and regretted that his orders were to burn. Very soon we saw a column of dark smoke arise from every building. And what at early morn had been a prosperous homestead. At noon there remained only smoldering ruins.
The American invasion force doesn't get much farther than the Ryers' homestead. At a place called Lundy's Lane, within earshot of Niagara Falls, 3,500 British and Canadian troops are waiting for them. Here, among the grave markers of a pioneer cemetery, they will fight the bloodiest battle of the war. When night falls, there is an informal ceasefire, and both sides call in reinforcements. Canadian Henry Rutten waits in the British lines.
It was yet so dark as to prevent distinguishing our men from those of the enemy. We could plainly see a line forming in our front and hear every order given.
5,000 men face each other in the cemetery, in some places less than 100 feet apart. One militiaman describes the showers of musket balls like a sweeping hailstorm. In the confusion, it is impossible to tell friend from foe, and both sides kill their own men by mistake. In the darkness, the two armies clash, as one soldier recalled, with a desperation bordering on madness. Around midnight, fearing the battle is lost, the Canadian turncoats retreat. Joseph Wilcox escapes, but dies in battle 6 weeks later. At dawn the next morning, the British and Canadians are left holding the field. Both armies have suffered terrible casualties.
Oh, that the king and the president were both here this moment to see the injury their quarrels lead to. They would surely never go to war without a cause that they could give as a reason to God at the last day, for thus destroying the creatures that he hath made in his own image. A soldier's wife.
The Canadian units are among the hardest hit. In one regiment, one of every 3 Canadians who fought at Lundy's Lane was killed or wounded. Canada's defenders pay a terrible price, but they have turned back the last major American invasion. A peace treaty will not be signed until Christmas Day, 1814, but Canada will never again be attacked. When the last Canadian veterans of the war gathered for a photograph in 1861, Canada was on the verge of nationhood. Old men now, they had fought and watched comrades die to secure and define the borders of that nation. The war that was supposed to assimilate the people of Canada has achieved precisely the opposite. In its determination not to become American, Canada has drawn closer to Britain than ever and has seen a glimmer of its own identity.